When most people think of Alfred Pennyworth, they probably envisage the doting old man sweeping up guano in the Batcave. He is Batman's conscience, his caretaker, and his emotional support. But beware, the Batman asked an interesting question. What happens when that steady hand is also capable of pulling the trigger? And this idea didn't come out of nowhere. It's something that had been hinted at in the early comic books, because Alfred has been a lot of things since he first appeared in the 1940s. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't seem to know is that Alfred did not begin as the dignified confidant audiences recognize today. The original Alfred, named Alfred Beagle, was a portly, clumsy figure who was essentially the comic relief. Rather than serving as a trusted partner to Batman, he was a recent hire who accidentally discovered Bruce Wayne's secret and fancied himself a bit of a detective. Far from strengthening Batman's mission, he often complicated matters, acting more as an obstacle than an asset, although at times he could comically stumble into saving the day. This changed dramatically after the success of the Batman movie serials, where actor William Austin portrayed a slimmer, more refined Alfred. The comics changed the character to resemble Austin's version, saying that he had been to a weight loss camp, and over time, Alfred was renamed Alfred Pennyworth. He evolved into a loyal family servant who joined the Waynes shortly before their murder and stood as Batman's closest confidant. Later stories deepened his history even further, portraying him as a former soldier, actor, and wartime spy who aided the French resistance during World War II. His personal life expanded to include a daughter, Julia, whose existence added a note of tragedy to Alfred's otherwise steadfast devotion to Bruce Wayne. He wasn't always aware of his daughter and had missed out on raising her in part because of his loyalty to the Waynes. Keep that in mind for later on. Following the continuity reset of Crisis on Infinite Earths, Alfred's role was refined again. The Pennyworth family legacy as servants to the Waynes became central to his identity, taking what had once been mere employment and shifting it to a lifelong duty rooted in honor. By this stage, Alfred was no longer comic relief, but an indispensable partner in Batman's crusade, offering medical care, tactical advice, and emotional support. The character had evolved from an accidental side character into one of the most essential figures in Batman's world. The first animated versions of Alfred were very faithful to the comics of the time. He appeared in the 1960s The Adventures of Batman, as well as 2 episodes of the Super Friends in the 1970s. While he was a tertiary figure and not that important to the overall story, he had a significant role in 1992's Batman the Animated Series. This is widely regarded as one of the most faithful and emotionally resonant interpretations of the character. This Alfred retained the character's comic book foundation while enhancing his character traits, particularly his dry wit and relentless sarcasm. From his earliest appearances, nearly every line he delivers carries a carefully placed quip, humor that softens Batman's severity and keeps the stories from becoming overwhelmingly bleak. His humor is never cruel though, instead it functions as a pressure valve, releasing tension at just the right moment. More importantly, this version firmly establishes Alfred as Bruce Wayne's surrogate father. His use of the title Master Bruce is not servile, but paternal. In Britain, the title Master is reserved for preteen males, so this acts as a reminder that he still sees Bruce as the vulnerable child he once raised. Unlike many comic interpretations where Bruce trained alone, Beatas's Alfred accompanied him on his global journey of self-improvement, and this subtle shift helps explain why this incarnation of Batman feels more compassionate than many others. He may have lost his parents, but he was never truly alone. This emotional foundation reaches its peak in Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where Alfred's hopes for Bruce's happiness come to the surface. He supports Bruce's mission, but clearly longs for him to abandon vigilantism in favor of a normal life with Andrea Beaumont. When that hope goes up in flames, Alfred's reaction is the grief of a father watching his child surrender any chance at happiness. This moment cements Alfred's role as the emotional anchor of Batman's world, a presence defined not by duty alone, but by genuine love. The next Batman show, 2004's The Batman, also treated Alfred as a significant figure, often a source of comic relief, like that time he spent a whole episode chasing a raccoon around the Batcave, or as exposition. His role was more prominent in the earlier series before Batgirl and Robin entered the picture, as he was Batman's only confidant. As such, those early seasons saw Alfred battling with some of Batman's foes, like the Penguin, whose ancestors had employed the Pennyworth family and treated them poorly, and Spellbinder, who hypnotized Gotham's elite's butlers to commit robberies. He was happy to support Batman's mission, but at the end of the day he wanted Bruce to be able to have a normal life, encouraging him in his romantic escapades before they all inevitably fell apart. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but the Batman's Alfred didn't really add much. Similarly, Alfred played a minor role in Batman the Brave and the Bold. This series was focused more on introducing the weird and wonderful heroes from across the DC universe, rather than looking at Batman's Gotham-centric war on crime. However, Beware the Batman took everything that came before and ramped it up to 11. There, Alfred was a former MI5 spy, think James Bond, who left the service and took a job butlering for the Wayne family. Rather than being a prim and proper Englishman, this Alfred is rough around the edges. He's not at all afraid of bloodying his hands, but when Thomas and Martha Wayne were gunned down, he found himself in an uncomfortable role as surrogate father to Bruce Wayne. He had raised Bruce since his parents died, and part of his parenting included an education in violence. He trained Bruce how to fight and actively supported him in his campaign as Batman, and not just as his guy in a chair, although he did do a fair bit of research, but he could be counted on as backup, turning up with a well-timed bazooka or diving in swinging his fists. Alfred cares about Bruce and wants what's best for him, but he also understands the healing power of a fistfight for a certain kind of person. This idea of Alfred as a surrogate father runs through the core of Beware the Batman's two halves. The initial half deals with the return of Ra's al Ghul, a former enemy of Alfred's from his spy days. Alfred and his CIA counterpart Edogawa Yamashiro were investigating Ra's and his League of Assassins. When the pair were caught, Edogawa was given a terrible choice to make. Either kill his friend using the Soul Taker sword, damning Alfred's soul for eternity, or the League would kill his wife and his infant daughter. Edogawa chose a third option, sacrificing himself, giving Alfred enough time to flee. Ra's only had power over Edogawa because he had a family. Alfred had nothing other than his work. Crushed by the weight of Edogawa's sacrifice, Alfred swore to watch over his daughter Tatsu. With his support, she followed in her father's footsteps and became a CIA agent who was assigned with infiltrating the League of Assassins. After tracking down the Soul Taker sword, stealing it and faking her own death, Tatsu went on the run and needed to lie low. This is when sneaky old Alfred saw an opportunity to bring the two halves of his life together. Alfred had been kidnapped by Professor Pig, who in this series is an animal rights activist, and had broken his leg while helping the other abductees to escape. Rather than leave Bruce unprotected, he brought in Tatsu as his official bodyguard. It's clear from the start that Alfred planned on bringing Tatsu into the Bat family. She too was a wounded, directionless person that craved justice, and Bruce was at risk of losing himself to his Batman identity. By bringing his two surrogate children together, they could work to resolve each other's issues. Batman trained Tatsu, who became known as Katana, while Tatsu was there in the field with him to ensure that he didn't fall into the abyss. And even with his two children working together, he still was heavily involved in their costumed lives. For instance, when Killer Croc lured them into a trap with quick-drying cement and an oncoming subway train, Alfred headed out to rescue them, and I do like how Alfred did not hesitate to get into a fistfight with an 8-foot-tall alligator man, even if he did lose. In the second half of the season, Alfred's third surrogate son entered the picture. Slade Wilson had been Alfred's CIA partner after Edogawa, but he was cruel and violent. Alfred had tried to take him under his wing, but he was too far gone. After Alfred stopped him from murdering a prisoner and got him kicked out of the CIA, Slade tried to kill Alfred but was unsuccessful. To say that Slade didn't take Alfred's rejection very well would be a colossal understatement. From that point on, he abandoned his civilian identity, taking the name Dane Lislow, and even had his face surgically altered. He had assumed that Alfred had rejected him because he was a bitter old man who felt threatened by his brilliance. But when he was hired by Harvey Dent to run his elite GCPD unit, he saw his former mentor acting as a humble butler to Bruce Wayne, and he could not understand how he had fallen so low. It was only once he encountered Batman as Deathstroke that he saw Alfred's fingerprints all over his fighting style, and the truth became apparent. Alfred wasn't a bitter old man jealously hoarding his skills. Alfred really had rejected him and embraced Bruce Wayne and Tatsu Yamashiro. Maybe there really was something wrong with him. But rather than accepting that Alfred may have had a point and done some soul-searching, he instead reacted with anger. He planned to destroy his surrogate siblings, as he called them, and force Alfred to accept him as his true son. Despite being much older now, Alfred still tried to defeat Deathstroke, but he was ultimately defeated. It would take Batman and Katana bringing in additional help, Oracle, Man-Bat and Metamorpho, to ultimately beat Deathstroke. But they faced a problem. Deathstroke knew their secrets, and he would tell. So Alfred pleaded with Man-Bat to come up with a solution because he's a scientist. They couldn't kill him, but there must be something they could do. Man-Bat proposed wiping Deathstroke's mind using a specific chemical compound that Metamorpho could produce, and the team went ahead with it. There was no discussion or alternative offered. Bam! They just erased Slade Wilson and then sent him to prison. It's funny because Alfred briefly left Batman to go and try to right some of the other wrongs of his life, including his fractured relationship with Slade Wilson. He genuinely seemed remorseful and wanted to try to help him too, but Slade was too far gone. He hid from Alfred and schemed against him. When push came to shove, Alfred decided to destroy Slade in order to protect his other children. But he's not troubled by that decision at all, and that's what lingers long after the dust settles. For decades, Alfred Pennyworth has been portrayed as Batman's moral compass, the man who patches wounds, offers counsel, and generally pulls Bruce back from the edge. But in Beware the Batman, Alfred isn't just the conscience standing behind the mission, he is one of the architects of it. He trained Bruce to fight, he guided Tatsu towards justice, and when Slade proved beyond saving, he made the call to erase him, and he didn't hesitate for a single second. It's clear that this version of Alfred understands something that many others only whisper about. Being a father doesn't just mean nurturing your children, it sometimes means making hard decisions in an instant. In the end, Beware the Batman doesn't just give us a tougher Alfred, it gives us a more dangerous one, a man who doesn't simply support Batman's war on crime, but helps forge the soldier who fights it. The steady hand that once stitched wounds and served tea is now the same hand capable of ending a life, or worse, erasing one. And when you look back at everything Alfred has been over the decades, comic relief, caretaker, confidant, it becomes clear that this version isn't a betrayal of the character at all. Bruce and Tatsu became heroes under his watch. Slade became a casualty of his judgment. And that's what makes Beware the Batman's Alfred so distinct. It's not because he can throw a punch or fire a weapon, but it's because beneath the suit and the sarcasm lies a man willing to do the unthinkable to protect his family, and he sleeps soundly once it's done. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. And while I have your attention, please consider checking out my other channel, Serum Lake Comics, where I talk about mostly DC comic books. Next time. When I return on Monday, I want to talk about the very first crossover episode of Static Shock, The Big Leagues, where Batman and Robin come to Dakota in search of the Joker, who has assumed control of the Metabreed. And next Friday, I'll be back to the results of my Batman the Brave and the Bold poll to talk about the Red Tornado. Hope to see you then.